issue of farmer header, which has evolved into a crisis for many, many years. Several governments and several policies have been put in place to see what can be done to resolve this particular issue. So today we heard the president announcing that there will be now a federal ministry of livestock development. So what does all of this mean? It's still very elementary, or at the early stage, I should say, because a presidential committee on livestock reform has now been formed. The president is going to chair that committee, and Professor Tahiru Jega, former INEC chairman, will deputize and will come up with a framework, some kind of. So whilst we're waiting for all of that, but how are Nigerians taking this? That's why we've been joined in the program by public affairs analyst who joins us via Zoom. Mr. Jide Ojo joins us to explore this conversation. Mr. Ojo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, Geoffrey. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
All right, Mr. Ojo, maybe your quick reaction to this announcement by the president. Did you see this coming?
No, I didn't see it coming. I thought government is a continuum, and under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, we have a livestock transformation plan, which billions of naira were voted for its implementation, and I think 4 states were to serve as pilot states at that time. And what we were told was that this is also the livestock transformation plan was going to help to resolve the conundrum of farmers-herders clashes, which has taken so many lives and has caused a lot of strife and enmity among brothers across the country. So now, obviously, the Tinubu administration has jettisoned that livestock transformation plan. And I know that on September 14, 2023, there was a committee that was chaired by APC National Chairman, Dr. Abdullahi Akande, which submitted its report at that time. And I think it was the implementation of that report that led to the announcement of the creation of the Ministry of Livestock Development today. But does the solution to our herders farmers clashes lie in balkanizing bureaucracy? Will that solve the problem? Has it factored in the age-long rivalry, the issue of land acquisition, the issue of ancestral land seizure, land now being vested in the states as a result of 1978 Land Use Act? I also read that they want to revive the grazing route. These grazing routes have been obliterated by development. Much of these grazing routes have been parceled out for building of residential and office spaces. So how do you want to do that? But like you said, Geoffrey, the information we have is still very sketchy. From what you have also told us, another committee seems to have been set up, headed by the president with Professor Tahiru Jega as secretary, which then means that we keep having committees upon committees. If the Abdullahi Ganduje committee report of September 14, which came up with 21 recommendations, what the president intended to implement, I don't see the need to have another committee being inaugurated today. But, you know, it is said that when you don't want to have something done, just set up committees to do it. And then we wait to see how all of this will pan out. Don't forget, this is second administration, second year of Tinubu administration. I don't know whether we have the luxury of time to continue to set up committees and set up fresh ministries. And you know, this ministry that is being proposed, livestock development, is not captured in 2024 budget. So even if you can create it by administrative fiat, it will still take some time to get proper funding for it, maybe a supplementary budget to enable proper takeoff of this Ministry of Livestock Development. Then you have to look for office space. Then you have to second staff to that place. And a whole lot of things. Already we are in the second half of 2024. So by the time they deal with all this bureaucracy, 2024 will be gone and will be in 2025. So why was this not thought through ab initio when the president created the additional ministry ahead of in August 2023? Why was it not thought through when he appointed 48 ministers? So with this now, it will be 49 ministers. We don't know whether he's even going to appoint 2 ministers in that ministry, given the fact that currently the Ministry of Agriculture has 2 ministers, substantive minister and minister of state. So if we now have additional 2 ministers in Ministry of Livestock Development, that will bring the number of ministers under this administration to 50.
Yeah, that's another big question again. Do you think it deserves the status of a ministry as a subsector of the agricultural sector in this case? Because as you've mentioned, we have 2 ministers already. I don't know whether the president is just going to move one of these minister of state to a substantive one. But some may be saying it doesn't deserve that status of a ministry. Maybe create an agency or build a better agency to manage it. So what's your response to that?
Truly speaking, I don't think we need to create a standalone ministry. Because, like I said, the challenge of having a new ministry means that you have to start looking for office space. You have to get funding, proper funding for this new ministry. You have to have staff that will be on secondment to this ministry. And we are already in July. So it will take additional 6 months and then to capture the new ministry in 2025 budget, because by September now, the budget for 2025 should be ready for submission to the National Assembly. But whatever wisdom the president has to announce the creation of this standalone ministry, I read somewhere that they said is in the best is common practice among West African countries to have a standalone Ministry of Livestock Development. But will that ministry be well-resourced? That is my worry. Will it be well-resourced? Are we going to have a ministry that will be functional, that will just not have a bloated bureaucracy, in which case buck passing and all of that? And then was there proper audit of the livestock transformation plan of Buhari administration, in which billions of naira was expended? And we already have several agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture, and I feel that that could have been strengthened. The related agencies under that ministry could have been strengthened to deal with whatever has been found to be the malaise that has made the elders farmers clashes to be lingering. Right. But what do I know? I'm not a politician. Right. Politicians in their own wisdom, they have their own briefings, they have their own technocrats who may have advised them one way or the other on what to do to resolve the problem. But let the problem be resolved. I think ultimately that's what matters most.
All right, Mr. Ojo, that's why we had to bring in our own Mr. Laolu Akande. He joins us in our Abuja studio. Mr. Akande, thank you so much for coming on the program. Mr. Ojo said he's not an advisor, he's not an all. So I know that you have been in government 8 years as a special advisor to the former vice president. You have been in those rooms. So one is wondering the thought process that brought about this. Maybe you can help us understand it better as Nigerians. So he's talked about the balkanization in his words and all of that. My question is, how will this new ministry address the issue of farmer header crisis? Because it looks like that appears to be one of the ultimate goals.
Right. Thank you, Jeff. I think the first thing to say clearly is that the National Livestock Transformation Plan is about the best solution that is on the table so far in this country when we're talking about resolving the farmer-elders clashes. Now, anyone who is able to review the information that is available we make that determination very easily. And at once, the National Livestock Transformation Plan tries to solve the problem of modernization of the livestock, subsector, okay, livestock farming, and try at the same time to solve the farmer-elders clashes. Now, I can tell you that this plan was developed by state governors working under the auspices of the National Economic Council that is chaired by the Vice President. And if I get my dates right, the plan has been endorsed, made ready way back in 2019. And Mr. Ojo is right, some money have been spent, for the pilot scheme, I believe in at least 2 states. Now, we don't know how far that has gone, but I will say that on the face value of it, any attempt to implement this plan should be commended, clearly. If we have a serious effort by any administration to implement the National Livestock Transformation Plan, we should commend it because of what it is that is in the plan, okay? The plan is saying that, look, it is high time for us to look at ranching instead of the nomadic cattle rearing situation, open grazing that often bring 2 problems. Problem of security because it leads to clashes with farmers, and then of course the underutilization, the under-tapping of the potential in the livestock industry. This plan solves it. Now, as to the question of whether it will be necessary to have a full-fledged ministry to implement this plan at a time when the Tinubu administration itself is talking about, how to rationalize existing MDAs. Now, we're going to have to wait and look at the details of the recommendations that are suggested, one of which has suggested the creation of another ministry. Okay, so that's something that we don't quite understand how it led to the creation of another ministry. We already have the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, which might be the right vehicle. But I must also add that part of the problems that has been articulated regarding the implementation of the plan, besides what I know to be insufficient political will in the past, besides that, there has also been the problem of the right kind of expertise, in terms of implementing it. Maybe that is the reason why, they are talking about a ministry. But I'm not sure that, we need a ministry. Based on what I know now, based on what is available publicly, I'm not entirely certain that we will need a ministry to do this. But let's await more details. But let me be very clear. The National Livestock Transformation Plan, if it is effectively implemented, is going to solve the problem of farmer-elder clashes and is going to modernize the livestock industry in our country.
Mr. Akande, I'm going to stay with you on this particular one for a couple of reasons. One, you served with the Vice President who headed the National Economic Council, and all of this were formulated in terms of the National Livestock Transformation Plan. And one of the major highlights is the issue of ranching. And even the issue of ranching as against open grazing was even controversial at some point, because people are saying livestock is a business. Why should government get involved in something that is profit-driven? At the end, I want you to speak to that.
Yeah, well, so I think government had to get involved in this problem purely because of the depth of the clashes that we were dealing with at that time. And I'm not sure that those problems have disappeared. So government came into it because it was leading to clashes, conflicts, deadly conflicts. Okay, so the National Economic Council, under the leadership of the former Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, decided to form a committee, and that committee had some governors, and you know that governors are members of NEC. And the committee went to all the major boiling points of the clashes across the country. Okay, I think it was even led at some point by the current Minister of Works, Governor Umahi, who was the governor of Ebonyi State. He led a big part of the work of the committee, and the committee didn't just stay where they in Abuja. They went to all the boiling points, the major states that had the conflict often and often, sat down with the stakeholders in those places, developed this plan, brought it back to the full council, and the council endorsed it. So what that meant is that this was a plan that had the endorsement of not just government, but also all the stakeholders that are involved in this problem: the farmers, the elders, the community, the traditional rulers, and all of that. Now, to your question, so why is government getting involved? Well, if it is going to solve the problem, and if you need to calibrate that industry in order to modernize it, it makes sense for government to create the environment and the circumstances for it to take off. So I think that was why you have government saying that, look, let's come together and develop the plan.
All right, Mr. Ojo, let me take it back to you on that same subject, but piggyback on that one, on asking the question of, I hope this is not going to create another set of agitation within the subsector. What do you see coming?
The old flames are going to rise again because, again, the information is sketchy, but from the 21 recommendations that I learned, the Ganduje committee that submitted its report on September 14, 2023, submitted, which I feel is what dovetailed into the announcement of a standalone Ministry of Livestock Development today. Definitely the issue of bringing back or revitalizing the grazing route, that agitation will come forth. Obviously, I think I read that there are 4 different types of feeders that were identified by the Ganduje committee: those who are sedentary, those who stayed in one place, those who are living within particular, who are settlers in another ethnic groups, those who are from neighboring countries, and those who are nomadics, who may be who may be Nigerian, but who are nomadics. And by the time you start this whole agitation of bring back our grazing routes, we don't want ranching. Remember, there was even a time they were talking about cattle colony under Buhari, and people said, where will you get the land for cattle colony? The biggest challenge I saw, and I alluded to it in my earlier comments, is Land Use Act has vested all land in the state government. So how will the government get land to implement, whether it's ranching or whether it's open grazing? That may come back to haunt or dog the activities of this new ministry. But I bow to the wisdom of those who may have a superior argument that this is a child of necessity. I don't see it as a child of necessity. I feel that this period that they are trying to implement the Oronsayo Committee report of having a smart administration, reducing the number of ministries, departments, and agencies. We should not be seen calibrating and bifurcating and just dividing up ministries. That's how Mr. President divided the Ministry of Solid Mineral and carved out a standalone Ministry of Steel Development with 2 ministers in that place. And that's the same way he carved out Ministry of Police Affairs with 2 ministers, despite having a constitutional body called Police Service Commission that is grossly underfunded. But again, I know people in government will say, oh, what does he know? He's not in government, he's not a politician. If this is all about politics, I'm more interested in good governance. That is my beat. That's what I want for this country. I want this country to be able to resolve its own crisis. And many lives have been lost due to this farmers' herders crisis. If the creation of Ministry of Livestock Development will end this age-long crisis, so be it. But I'm just more worried about proper funding and having this ministry, when it is eventually take off, to be well-resourced. Because we know that in time past, agencies are established, ministries are established, but they are grossly underfunded. They are grossly understaffed. They don't have office space. So at the end of the day, the whole essence of having them is defeated. And that, I hope, will not be the lot of this Ministry of Livestock Development, and that there will be no unhealthy rivalry between Ministry of Agriculture and then this Ministry of Livestock Development. Because where do you draw a line between Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Livestock Development? Is it now going to, are we going to re-Christian the Ministry of Agriculture to say Ministry of Crop Affairs or the Ministry of Grains or whatever? And so, because you are now separating agriculture from livestock, you are separating livestock from other forms of agriculture that we may have. But this is still an unfolding scenario that one will bow to kind of hurry slowly to have all the information out in order to come to a definitive stand. Yes.
All right, Mr. Akande, let's begin to wind down. You talked about the issue of overlapping. Let me go to Mr. Akande on this one. I would like you to speak to that issue of possible overlapping of duties between the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security and this ministry. But I will read the thoughts of the president when he was talking to the committee. He said, we need to provide the incentive to enable Nigeria to finally take advantage of livestock farming, dairy products, and cold chain logistics collectively offer substantial commercial and economic advantages. We have seen solutions and opportunities with these adversities that have plagued us over the years. I believe that prosperity is here in your hands. So I needed to read that so that in bringing your thought in terms of the overlapping I talked about.
Oh, let me take it from the last part of what the president said. Because it's important to make one point here. Now, the very idea of maintaining open grazing alongside this livestock transformation plan is something that, in my view, sounds very backward. Look, this problem started, the farmers' herders clashes started because of this very idea of open grazing. Now, but more importantly, the level of productivity of the livestock when they are roaming all over the place is significantly reduced. And when you compare the kind of productivity that you're going to get when you have a proper ranching with mechanized farming capacities, you know, it is indeed a transformation. Look, this is an industry in the U.S., the beef and dairy industry in the U.S., just to give you a context, is over $100 billion annually. So you can see the kind of capacity that this has to actually transform our economy. is huge. But please, let us make it very clear that mixing this up with the idea of open grazing for lands that are no longer available is completely backward, and it's not something that we should still be talking of in this time and age.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Laolu Akande, public affairs analyst and journalist, as well as Mr. Jide Ojo joined us via Zoom, public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through at this very hour. Thank you.
My pleasure.